And it also feels really hot.
It is feeling hot, hot, hot.
Meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees is here in studio with us. Brittany, it was, so can I give you like the evolution of my morning real quick?
Sure.
Before we get to the forecast.
Please.
So I went for a run this morning and it was just suffocating outside at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's suffocating.
Yeah.
Like my heart rate peaked at 190
Do you know why that is?
because of the humidity. It was just, and I knew that it was going to be humid.
Yeah.
I felt very just miserable. I felt disgusting afterwards. And then I went to take a quick call outside around 10:30 and it felt miserable outside.
Yeah.
It's just before noon, it was miserable, Brittany. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, you're right. Also, the reason why it feels so much worse at 5 a.m. is also because the air temperature and the dew point are closer to each other.
Oh.
So, like, for example, 70 or higher, we always know is air you can wear. But if, like, the dew point is 71 and the temperature is 72, you're at almost, like, 100% humidity. And so that's why, like, when people are like, go for a morning run, I'm like,
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not hot, but it feels almost worse.
I was definitely wearing that air.
Yeah, you were. I know, that's why I was like, I'm like so hot right now. I don't know if it's just like
I'm hot too.
running around doing stuff. But I like feel like that, where it's like sticky to where like my hair is like sticking onto my body, even though I'm wearing sleeveless.
Oh
Yeah.
man, I'm hot too.
I have said this disclaimer about 50,000 times. It feels like the last few days, but if anybody at home is watching and like thinks Nick and I are being dramatic, it is always hot and humid during the summer in the Carolinas. We know that that's established. But there are times where it is above average heat and humidity. Just like, for example, during the winter, we know that it can get into the teens and 20s. But when it's in the single digits, when people are at a higher risk for frostbite, we talk about it, right? So it's kind of the flip script now is that today is a day where we have a higher than normal risk for heat and humidity. So we have to talk about it. I did a mobile short on this last night too, but our team is never going to issue a weather alert for every single day during the summer because it would be disgusting every single day. It's like the same reason why we would never issue, a weather alert for like a chance for thunderstorms because it's going to happen almost every single day.
Right.
But when there's a higher risk for severe storms, you might see that, especially if there's a higher risk for gusty winds or a tornado. But secondly, you will see them if we have a risk for a heat index above 103 because that is the threshold that you're at a higher risk for heat-related illnesses. So that is not Brittany saying it, it's science. So 103 or higher, you're at a higher risk for heat cramps and heat exhaustion. In fact, the National Weather Service calls those likely. And then heat stroke is likely if exposed for a prolonged period of time. So the reason why I get, I guess, worried about this time of year is like folks who work outside, kids
They
at
have to be
camps,
outside.
things like that. And just you're having fun sometimes, I think, and like you don't even think about how bad it is. I will also, before I get into the forecasts, last little TED Talk I'll go on to, but also the temperatures that you see. So like 89 at the airport, 96 right now is our feels like temperature. Those are taken in the shade.
These are taken in the shade.
Oh.
So
So
actually,
it's hot. It's actually hotter in the sun.
yes, by about 10 to 15 degrees normally.
Oh.
Whoa.
So the way that and actually I did a weather IQ on this a couple years ago, but so the way that the ASOS data is taken is that there's essentially, this is very basic, but there's essentially a little thing that pulls in the air.
Okay.
And so it actually is from a shaded place. It's not in the sun. And so I did this story. I went to the National Weather Service in Greenville, Spartanburg. They showed us how theirs works at their airport. But then when I was doing the tag out, the outro for the package, I went into the parking lot with Sweet James, our weather producer, and I took my infrared thermometer, and that day it was 85 degrees outside. In the shade by our gate to get in, where all those trees are, 58.
What?
Yeah, because that area is always shaded. It never gets hot. It's essentially always
it's
cool.
always in the shade.
And then our parking lot was 125.
Our parking lot is a frying pan.
125?
But that's what you have to. So that's the thing is like that's the air temperature that's being taken at the airport, right? So it was 85 degrees at that point, and it's really I feel like very accurate since we're so close to the airport.
Right.
But so that's how bad it could feel in the sun. So like when you're talking about the heat index for that day, let's say it was 85. Well, if it actually feels just regular temperature like 125. Like think about, you just have to think about that when you talk about this. So again, that was my little tidbit before let's talk about the forecast.
Very
So,
informative. Thank you, Brittany.
let's do it. And if you want to watch that weather IQ, it's on our YouTube page. So just search
Whee!
temperatures in the shade versus the sun. Weather IQ. All right. WCNC Tower Cam. There you go. Looking at our beautiful city, our toasty city. 89 right now. 96 is the current heat index because of that dew point at 72. We are expecting a peak around 103 this afternoon. So that essentially puts us right at that threshold for heat exhaustion, heat cramps to be likely, and heat stroke likely with prolonged exposure. So taking that time to find your breaks, your air conditioning, even again that shaded spot, maybe out in your parking lot or yard or whatever it is, it's a good day to do so because we know heat exhaustion and heat stroke are both heat-related illnesses, but one is a medical emergency and the other is, just trying to cool down your friend. Dizziness, thirst, heavy sweating, nausea, that's pretty much heat exhaustion. Once you start to see somebody who maybe starts to feel confused, there's a loss of consciousness, or even like a hot, dry skin. So instead of sweating, they actually start to feel hot and dry. That is a medical emergency, and all medical professionals that I've spoken to and done stories about this tell you that it's an immediate 911 call. So again, knowing the differences and kind of just keeping an eye on people. This is the time of year, especially when kids are out of school or like they're running around, you have so many things going on. But if you take a second, to check on your neighbors, maybe some elderly folks that are in your family, the kids, if they are at camp or whatever the case is. Sorry, my nose is running, so I gotta take a tissue really quick. Excuse me.
Take your time.
I know I was like, thank goodness, because it always runs in this room for some reason. But Thursday and Friday, we are at a major impact. So you can see all those areas shaded in red. This is actually a data that we get from the National Weather Service where they essentially take into account what the heat and humidity is, elevation, what our normal is this time of year, population, all those things that kind of anything that can impact your heat exposure. So Thursday and Friday for us were red across the Charlotte area, but look what happens on Saturday. What's interesting is we have that big high pressure. It kind of shifts a little bit. So we actually see some slight relief, but areas southeast of us. So think Anson County, Lancaster County, Chesterfield, and even over towards Southern Pines area. One of Carlene's favorite places, Darlington, South Carolina, Raleigh, all of those areas further east. So Florence, all those spots as you get closer to the beach, those are actually going to be under the purple, so the extreme. So for us, today and tomorrow, the worst. But if you're going to the East Coast or you have friends or family who live there, Saturday is going to be their worst impact. All right, for a quick second, we're going to shift gears here to talk about rain because this does have an impact on tomorrow's forecast as well. Today, just like yesterday, very spotty storm chance. You can see a few of those tonight. Kind of a typical chance. You blink and you miss it if you're not in one of those places that gets a downpour. Tomorrow, afternoon and evening once again. Saturday, a little bit drier. The reason why we're a little bit drier Saturday is because of that same shift of the high pressure. So it looks like a lot of those storms are also going to be further east. So because of that, today, we don't really have a risk for severe storms. But tomorrow, we do. Because of that same shift there, that same approaching storm system, that same high pressure kind of pushing away, will actually allow for a double whammy for us tomorrow. So heat and humidity is still number one, in my personal opinion, because again, at higher risk and more people see it. But number two is that we will have to watch some strong to severe thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon. Now, typically the biggest risk during the summer are damaging winds by a landslide. I do think we could see some small pea to penny sized hail. We got some reports of that yesterday, but just because it's a Friday, honestly, the timing couldn't be worse. It's a Friday. It's the first Friday of kids out of school. I'm sure I know a lot of people will be out and about doing activities. So just please make sure you're staying safe. Heat, humidity, storms, not a great combination. Now, as we look toward the weekend, again, as I mentioned at the very top of this, we know it's hot and humid during the summer here in the Carolinas. Saturday and Sunday will be your typical stuff. In fact, it actually is a little bit hotter than normal even, but it's just not as bad as where we are the next 2 days. So today and tomorrow, weather alert because of that 103 or higher. Saturday and Sunday, not quite as hot and humid, and you can see some higher rain chances start to return early next week, so we should see some slight relief. And just to leave you one more time with the 5-day, this is the peak heat index expected in Charlotte. So 103 today, 104 tomorrow. And then again, you can see Saturday, Sunday, and Monday are still hot, just not as bad. Again, 103 is that threshold. Also, when it's 103 in Charlotte, that means not everybody's at 103, right? Everybody is in a different place. If you're further south and east, like I mentioned, same places like down towards Chirac, typically you're a few degrees hotter. I've also noticed a pretty notable trend in York County. Sometimes Rock Hill is a few degrees hotter than us. Just because the further south and southeast you go, this is pretty typical. Carly knows because she went to school there. Columbia, South Carolina is known as the hottest part of basically the whole entire southeast.
Call it the armpit of the
So-
state because
It
it
really is,
just
truly.
Yeah. So when you kind of see that space between us and Columbia, a lot of times those areas heat up faster.
Yeah.
So whereas we sometimes get the urban heat island effect in Charlotte, it's because of the positioning of where they are. They essentially get all that heat and humidity coming in from essentially both sides, right? Because you think about Columbia, you're getting all that heat and humidity from the Gulf, and then you're also getting it pushing in from the Atlantic. So pretty typical to see that. So I just wanted to note that before I left you for an hour. That's all I have though.
Thanks,
Hot, humid.
Oh man, Brittany Van Voorhees.
This is a good time. Just check on your neighbors.
Yes.
Check
Yeah,
on your pets.
yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a given.
You know what I mean? Be smart.
Yeah,
Wear
we're-
sunscreen.
Yeah. For example, Carlene went to the Charlotte Weenie Walk last night.
I
I saw it on
did.
your Instagram. I feel like if it was today, you guys would probably maybe not be doing it, or
Probably
at least like
not.
putting little booties on the babies.
Yeah.
Because it's just
It's too
it's
warm.
okay. I mean, you can't like prevent your dogs from ever going outside during the summer.
No.
But it's just knowing which days are more.
And everybody had
dangerous
their
than
water
others.
bottles for the
Mhm.
dogs and everything. It's just making sure that
Yeah.
your dog there are tells
Yeah.
when your dog's thirsty. So just keep an eye out on him.
Yeah. Unless your dog is Roger Federer Van Voorhees, and he never wants to drink water. But different concern for a different day.
All right.
All right.
Brittany Van Voorhees with the forecast. Thank you, Brittany. We'll see you
You're
in
welcome.
an hour. Like, actually less than an hour.
Less than an hour.
Less than an
All
hour,
right.
actually. We'll see you in less than an
We'll
hour.
miss
So
you.
she's
I'll
not
try to
going
come up
anywhere.
with some fun new tidbits.
Okay.